In this video tutorial, I shall give you a brief look about a small topic in C++ named constructor and function overloading. So let's get started. This is Aisman and welcome to Skills Grow. You might have learned about constructors. But what is a constructor overloading? If in a class there are more than one constructor with different signatures, then it is simply known as constructor overloading. But what is a signature in constructor? To know about that, stay tuned to this tutorial. Overloaded constructors have same name but different number of arguments. The constructor is called depending upon the number and type of arguments passed. Arguments are passed to a new object in order to let the compiler know which constructor is needed to be called. Now, the signature of the constructors. That is, the number of arguments. Let's look at this example. Here, there are two arguments, that is, a name and an ID number. And the type of arguments. In a constructor, we can use many number of data types, namely integer, double, string, and etc. This usage defines the type of arguments and the sequence of arguments. The two overloaded constructors must have different order of arguments. Now, we have learned what are the signatures in constructor overloading. Let's look at the conditions for constructor overloading. The first condition for constructor overloading is that both the overloaded constructors must have different parameters. And we cannot make two constructors have exactly same arguments. Let's say both constructors having integer or double arguments. Either number of arguments or type of arguments must vary. We can have many number of constructors, but with the different arguments. Here, in an example program, we can see the area class, and the constructors are declared as area with default length and breadth, where we have already given the values. And the second constructor is not given the values and asks the user to enter the length and breadth. The area calculation function returns the area, and the display area function shows the calculated area. Here, length and breadth are the private data members. In the main function, we have created two area class objects, A1 and A2, one with no arguments, the other with two arguments. When we try to call the function area calculation for two objects and display them, here is the output. Boxed, right. Let me clear this for you. Here, the compiler does the work for us. The compiler calls the default constructor for the object which has no argument, and the other constructor is called for the area calculation with arguments. In this way, the overloading of constructor happens in C++. Now, let's learn what is a function overloading. Function refers to a segment that groups code to perform a specific task. C++ allows more than one function of the same name in the same space. These are called overloaded functions. It is nothing but where two or more functions can have the same name but different parameters. For example, let us consider a function test. In the first declaration, we don't have any parameters. And the next we have given an integer type parameter and so on. Here, the number of arguments and the type of arguments are different. Function overloading is usually used to enhance the readability of the program. If we have to perform one single operation but with different number or type of arguments, then we can simply overload the function. There are two different ways to overload a function. One way is by changing the number of arguments, and the other one is by having different types of arguments. First, let's see what happens if the number of arguments are different. In this type of function overloading, we define two functions with same names but different number of parameters of the same type. Now, what happens if we give different data types as arguments? In this type of overloading, we define two or more functions with same name and same number of parameters, but the type of parameter is different. This is all about the basics on how to overload a function and constructor. Thank you for watching the video and stay tuned for more content from us.